Blog Talk Radio.
Hey guys, this is Those Guys with your host Matt Marrero along with your other host
Tristan Walter.
And today we are talking about King Kong 1933, which is such a strange beast, no pun intended, because I haven't seen this movie in a very long time. No, it really wasn't actually. Like, it just popped up in my head. I'm being serious. I'm not, granted, a lot of my jokes do, but it really wasn't a joke. I'm being serious. Because it's a very strange film. Now, I say this because I hadn't seen this movie in a very long time. I assume you hadn't either.
Mhm.
And, you know, it's very strange because I was expecting Godzilla, but, like, I had forgotten it came out 20 years before Godzilla.
Yeah.
So, well, there's certain things that, frankly, I look at this movie and I'm like, this is amazing. Like, I look at the way Kong was done. I look at the way the film was imposed. Because here's the thing, too, right? I think a lot of people, even people that aren't as young as us or younger than us, like my students who are, you know, teenagers, just even people in their 30s and 40s and 50s, they might sit there and be like, oh, yeah, of course, that looks so fake or that looks dated or everything. But they have to remember that, like, this was so long ago. The fact that they could even make a movie like this is spectacular.
Yeah.
Like, just superimposing the footage on other footage. I was reading up on it. They actually had to do things where they would play the reel with, like, a kind of a translucent white, you know, like, I guess, like, screen in front of it so that you wouldn't necessarily see that it's, like, you know, like being played on a screen. So you'd have to play the footage and then film the actors watching the footage. Or they would put reels over other reels.
Yeah.
So that so in the same way that I would freaking use Adobe After Effects today to take footage that was green screened and put it onto a picture or something like that. Which we've never done before because anytime anything happens to us, it's real. But it's still, if I wanted to, it's, you know, then it could happen. But it's still crazy that, like, they were able to do any of that. Like, yes, some of Kong's movements looked janky, right? It's stop motion. It's never going to stop motion unless I would argue maybe today assisted with a very high budget, you know, with some other special effects added onto it. Stop motion is never going to not look at least a little bit janky, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, but even just putting that aside, it was done so well that I sometimes say, yes, of course, you're like, oh, that's so dated. But if you put yourself in 1933, that's mind-blowing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So that is one of the I would argue that, you know, I hate to do this because I don't mean to be a dick, but I feel like this is, like, definitely one of those, like, you call it a popcorn film. You know, some people try to be like, oh, it's one of those blockbusters that's not really meant to have a great plot or anything like that. I would argue this is one of those films, like, at least for their era. Because, like, I know it's regarded as a classic, but I don't even look at the writing. Putting aside any kind of rants I'm going to go on via, like, sexism, misogyny, and racism, and, you know, you coming in with, like, better apology, right? Even putting all that aside, like we talk about when we do the indie films, even when we did them for Friday Night Movies, even putting those aside, right? I don't know. I feel like they definitely did a lot to save money, and you can tell. Where it's just like, oh, how are we going to get them to New York? Don't worry, we'll get them there. Flashes to New York. Well, they got him there.
Yeah, we built a raft and we towed him all the way there.
Or just even if you're like, oh, Matt, you know, like you said you were going to remove the sexism and misogyny from the conversation. It's like, okay, I will. I'll look at the quote unquote love story as it is, just a love story. It was terrible. Like, if they had kissed at the end and everything, then I'd be like, oh, okay, like, you learn that this guy isn't really as much of a dick as you thought, and then everything changed and everything. But, like, that dude's a dick to you. And then it's just like, well, but he's working on a boat.
I mean,
it's like,
I don't know.
It has nothing, like,
I guess I would say it's the times, like, you know, down on our luck girl meets cute sailor guy. I mean, granted,
but I don't think they
hearing that,
pushed
it's
it
like,
hard
oh,
enough.
they're gonna get married. It's like, whoa, all right. I mean, I guess that's what they did at the time, but like, you kind of got married pretty early. But that was
No, but like I understand that things are different back then than they are now. I completely understand that, and you're not excusing. You're referring to this only as the love story portion, not as the other parts. You're not
exactly.
You're just referring to a love story right now. Like, and it's funny. Yes, some could say, well, the sexism is part of the love story, obviously, but we're not referring to when he was a complete and utter piece of shit to her earlier. A little bit we're alluding to it, but I'll complain about that later. Oh wait, no, like not complain, because I've said on the show before, complaints to me means that they're not worth it. I will definitely rip into it and shred it apart on those bases later. But referring to it just as the love story, I'm just never a big fan. Because here's the thing, too, right? Please understand that, like, Tristan, that, like, throughout the years, even to this day in some ways, you'll still have movies with their love stories being, like, 20, 30 minutes in, even, like, minus the marriage part. But even still, just, like, them kissing or, you know, you sit there and you're like, there was no growth. There was no connection.
Yeah.
So, like, I don't want to look at 1933 and just be like, oh, they were so young then, because I feel like that's condescending. Not that you are, but do you know what I mean? Like, oh, they were just old. It's just an old movie. Like, we shouldn't hold it to certain standards because it's old. Like, obviously, the more racist aspects, the more sexist aspects, while we denounce it, we understand that it's 1933.
Yeah.
And I know you were making that point to me earlier, like, it's horrendous, but it's also 1933. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. But when it comes to, like, the idea of, oh, the love story isn't coherent, I don't want to say that it's 1933's fault.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I guess it's more playing on the fact of, like, oh, you saved me from the giant monster kind of thing.
But it was pre that. That's what I'm talking. Remember, they kissed before that. If they kissed after, I'd be okay with it.
Right.
Like, if they were dating after that, I'd be like, all right, he was a dick before, and I don't like him, but he saved her from a monster, and, like, that's the story that they're going with, so be it, right? Then I'd go with 1933 different ideals in that regard. But just, like, the idea of you know, because I feel like the love story was it was shoehorned. That's the problem, really. That's why I talk about it being a plot thing. It was just shoehorned in there, and it kind of, in a way, was like a it was kind of tongue in cheek in a way.
Yeah.
Earlier, when he's like, oh, you know, they just say you have to put in a love story to make a picture, and I was like, that's funny.
Yeah.
But
I would assume that maybe they did that on purpose. But
maybe, and if so, kudos to them, because it is kind of tongue-in-cheek in a way. If they were just like, because, you know, I just don't know if after every single draft, if that was the case, because there were many drafts in this, so you never really. Another thing too, by the way, and we're talking about the movie itself. One thing I want to say, right, that I found very interesting, and I'm sure you did too. The movie was very graphic, as you may have noticed.
A little bit.
Very interestingly enough, because here's the thing too, right? Anytime in my opinion, when people hear, oh, this movie was made in X year, and it was like before the 70s, right? Mm-hmm. Everyone's like, oh, or even the 60s, everyone thinks, oh, that must be a repressed film. Like, that movie's going to have nothing in it. Like, that movie's just going to be like, oh, man, King Kong punched a dinosaur, walks away, right? And then you're like, oh, so that's what he did with his jaw. Oh, we're focusing on that shot.
Yeah.
Oh, he's ripping her clothes. Even though, like, here's the thing, too, right? You might be like, oh, well, the ripping clothes was meant to be more like Kong is ape, not understand human dress. But when they showed her specifically with her clothes ripped, and then got close-ups where, like, you can see her bra, and it's funny, too. I could feel like they were yelling at her, don't move too much, it's not that secure. Like, because you obviously can't show that, like, you can't show a nipple on camera, but at the same time, they can get away with a lot more back then, even with, like, Kong stepping on villagers. Right? Well, some people might sit there and be like, you know, oh, that's racist because, you know, they're killing the savages and, you know, quote-unquote savages that they've made and all this stuff. The only reason why I won't argue that is because he also put other people in his mouth and ate them as well, who were white.
Right.
But still, regardless, though, even taking the racial aspect out of it, you're like, why the fuck is he stepping and eating people anyway? This movie came out so long ago, you would think that there'd be some kind of rule in place to try to make sure that the movies were decent, because obviously a very large, if not Catholic, like stronghold, at least a stronghold on quote-unquote morality, right? Now,
Yeah.
it turns out, Tristan, now here's something very interesting, Tristan. It turns out that there weren't rules in place for what you could show in movies. It's just that things weren't as, basically, I would assume when movies they weren't talkies, right? So they were basically silent films. Everyone's confused. But what? Like, or younger fans are confused. What do you mean by silent films? So, yeah, when you had silent films, i.e. with no speech, no talking in them. As a speech and debate coach, that hurts me personally.
Yeah, because you couldn't record audio. You could just only record visual. So
exactly. I mean, they would put soundtracks on it, I believe.
Yeah.
But you couldn't.
But that was
but you could
separate.
Mm-hmm. So anyway, the point is that I think that maybe it was because of the limitations at the time, it was harder to make things that were as crazy as you would get in 1933 Kong or in some other movies at the time. Also, you wouldn't really, I guess maybe you could have smoking and other drug use, but I don't know about anything in the 1910s, 1920s that I can think of that were like terrible in terms of like drug use and blood and gore and things like that. Anyway. So once 1930 came around, they actually put this code in place where they were like, "Listen, you can't show some of this crazy shit in movies." Because I guess to be fair, once sound did come into the picture, that was a pun. Into the picture, then all of a sudden you had, I guess, things being a lot more graphic because they can get away. Things became a lot more easier to portray. So then, I would argue there had to be something going on in the late 1920s. For them to try to bring up this code in 1930, but it wasn't like it wasn't fully, what's the word? It wasn't fully adhered to until
out yet?
Enforced. Thank you, enforced, adhered to until like the mid 1930s. So that's why when this movie was written and it came out in 1933, you had some of the stuff going on that by today's standards you would think wouldn't be going on in a movie that came out in 1933. So it's very interesting. Because, I don't know about you, I was surprised. I had forgot. I was like, oh, because I saw the movie once before, but I had forgotten because God knows how long ago it was. So I'm sitting here and I'm like, my God, what in the fuck are they doing? Well, because I don't know, because like even though it was like, but he's fighting another monster, even though it's a dinosaur, another monster. Of course, you can do anything to it. You still don't assume that it's gonna like blood's gonna splurt out of it, and he's gonna try and like crack it multiple times, and finally crack the jaw, and then it's gonna stay there while the dude is just walking by him.
Granted, the people threw grenades and blew bullet holes through that poor Stegosaurus earlier on.
So here's the thing. That was very sad.
I know.
But there's a difference between bullets and grenades, like wartime pictures, versus like a monster ripping apart another monster's head.
Yeah.
I feel there's a difference between the blood and also, again, the sexuality that was shown. Even the villager, the fact that even though, of course, you didn't see her bare breasts, she was still naked enough. The one who was going to be sacrificed as the Bride of Kong.
Right.
So it was just before they brought her character there, or before any of them came there. It was just so strange to me, because I was like, why in the hell are we, like, why? But how in the hell can you do this? And then when I looked it up, I realized that the code was not enforced at this point. So very interesting thing to look at, because, again, I feel like everyone looks at pre-1960s, 1970s films as very Puritan, and they forget that there was a point in history where they didn't have a code to adhere to, or they just didn't care.
Right.
And then you had stuff like King Kong come out.
Yeah. So,
yes.
You could go, I guess you could think of it as going for the shock value, like that kind of thing gets people's attention. Like, no matter what the time is,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Most definitely. This film sold very well, right? And it was very interesting how how this film inspired other films as well. I don't believe that. I definitely don't believe that it is confirmed that King Kong inspired Indiana Jones. But let's be real here, right? Let's all be real here. There were many movies like King Kong at its time. There were. It's not just King Kong was the one that stood the test of time, but it's not like jungle films didn't exist before King Kong, right?
Yeah.
But let's be real. When you look at a lot of stuff that came that was done in the Indiana Jones films, the first 3 specifically, you could really I can really see a comparison to this film. I'm sorry, you see some inspiration from this film. That's just my take on it. I don't know if you.
Yeah, I guess it's always the idea of showing civilization, quote unquote, versus other. We would call it now other ways of life, because obviously there's no one right way for a group of people to live their lives, but
yes,
civilization
and
versus living out in the wilderness, and that's
right.
That's been a struggle between peoples for the longest time. We always look at the idea of even just trying to think of an example, classes that I've taken in previous years, but the idea that people want to shut wilderness out and keep civilization in. So,
well, you want to know something very interesting? Some people, and I feel like they might be older, but just in general, some people might say, well, I don't see what was a problem with the depiction of the savages. They were savage. All right, let's try to take race out of here, but they were savage, and they stole this woman to try and feed her or sacrifice her to a giant ape. And you kind of sit back and you want to remind them that a white film director in New York City randomly picked a woman off the street. He literally was like, holds her, taxi! And she's just like, well, he just saved me from not going to jail, so I guess I need to at least listen to his offer. I know, but you know what I mean? It was.
She heard him out, but even she was like, I'm not so sure about this, and he's like, well, all right, let me explain what I'm actually asking you to do. It's like, no, this is just a movie. That's all it's going to be.
That is the best part of this movie when it comes to her character. And the reason why I say that, right, is because, and it's sad to say this, because now we're going to get into some of the stuff that, might be a little bit more heavy, around the time period, stuff like that. You would think that, a woman couldn't have wrote this film at all. They couldn't have had any intervention with a woman, because, my God, this the way she was written was crazy in some respects. Even though you would think she's about to say something horrible to a guy, listen, shut your hole, or something that today, even if a guy says, or even in the 90s, when when we look back at some movies, where if a guy said something the way the guys were speaking to her on the ship, or something like that, she'd be like, shut up, you. And then we'd move on. At least she'd be able to speak in that way.
Right.
But literally, it was crazy how, it's just we don't want a woman on the ship because she's going to bother people. Well, I haven't bothered anyone. It was just so interesting.
there's always that.
If they,
there's trying to think of the word for it. Superstition. That having a woman on a ship is bad luck. You'll run into a storm, or the ship will capsize, or stupid shit like that.
Really? Okay. So while it's obviously still drowned in sexism, I'm happy that there's at least a basis, a shitty basis regardless, but there's a basis, because when you're watching this movie in 2017 and you don't know about that, it completely throws you off. Now, it's still just as wrong, mind you, but at least I thank you for telling me a reason, at the very least, so that it makes sense in the shittiest of ways possible, rather than just being like, my goodness, you just literally one guy, man, women on boats, am I right? And you're just like, what the fuck? Okay.
I was actually really surprised that they didn't say like even anything about that. Like, oh, it's bad luck to have a woman on a ship. Don't you know that? Like they didn't even mention it. He was just like, no, you shouldn't be here.
It's probably assumed at the time, because now I'm probably putting something onto it, and I apologize if I am to everyone out there who's a little bit older. But I feel like 1933, it might just be assumed, like, yeah, no, we all know about that. That's common knowledge. Or at the very least, you might be watching the movie with your dad or your mom, and they'll know.
Right.
Right? Versus nowadays, where like I had no idea. Right? Because like it's just we're so removed from a large portion of our family working on these ships, or knowing someone who works on a ship, or knowing someone at the docks. You know what I'm saying? Like, we both live in New York, and I've never gone to, quote-unquote, the docks. Do you know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. But and even movies nowadays, I never see movies at the docks. So, like, there's not even any talk of it. It's very interesting. So again, still shitty, but yeah. So, but still, just anything that he says to her, really, before things start getting nicer, anything he starts opening up, anything he says to her, and then she's just like, oh, but I'm not the problem. And it's kind of just like, or I'm not doing anything wrong, or am I really? And it's just like, oh my God, right? So you're sitting there and you're like, a man had to have written her to be like this subservient, right? Now, sadly, they did bring a woman on to kind of to write, to kind of condense certain scenes and cut up the action and make it more tight, like make it So it's very interesting, because you look at a lot of movies and a lot of books, and apparently there was a picture going around recently that was showing that a lot of famous authors, or even just a lot of authors in general, like even Stephen King, I believe, the women, like in their lives, wives, girlfriends, fiancés, whatever it might be, are their typists. So, like, yes, Stephen King would write his books, but his wife would be the one typing them up.
Right.
And it's very interesting. I'm not saying every book, obviously, but it's still very interesting, like, the role that women have played that we don't know about. So, like, knowing that, oh, wow, well, I believe it was the director's wife that came on and actually tightened up some of this film, right, and helped it, be the final draft. But yet at the same time, we still have the woman in this role. And I'm not saying that women can't be love interests, right? Well, it sucks that she was the damsel in distress, right? It's just, you could argue, but it's just Kong liking her, and taking a fascination with her.
Yeah.
The problem, of course, really, yeah.
Oh. No, just me studying anthropology and studying at least a little bit into primates weirds me the hell out, even because, yes, there can be bonds between people and animals, obviously, but not like the way it's portrayed here, I guess.
Well, the reason why
just
this was
odd
done is
curiosity.
Right. Well, the reason why this was done, I think I mentioned to you, there were movies like this at the time, and I don't remember the exact names of the films, but there were many films that kind of portrayed this idea of like not only these animals, but animals and humans, and like women being in peril because of the animal coming in and stuff like that. So they were really trying to capitalize on that with King Kong. That's just one of the things that's kind of lost to history, when you see King Kong thrive, but a lot of the other movies at the time not. Or at least not at the level of King Kong, where, we just got a remake this year.
Yeah, which was amazing, by the way, if anyone is listening hasn't seen it or has an interest in seeing it. Very good.
Right. It was very, I haven't seen it, but I saw some of the trailers, and you showed me a clip. I was very intrigued that they went back to stop motion for King. I'm kidding. Can you fucking imagine? Fucking like $50 million film. I don't know if it's $50 million, but like many $1 million film in 2017 with like people like Samuel L. Jackson, everyone behind, like everyone CGI, probably never even went to any of the locations they pretended to be filming in, probably all in a fucking warehouse. But literally, it's like, we're going to fucking get stop motion for Kong in 2017. Look, I'm sorry. Here's the thing, right? I'm not trying to shit on stop motion. Tristan loves stop motion. I'm just trying to say, at the very least, put the guy in a suit. Put a guy in a suit. I'm cool with that.
Right.
But like stop motion in 2017, that would
be
not
hilarious.
look. Yeah, I'm saying that would not look good.
It was an animated film that had elements of stop motion in it, and they added animation elements in to kind of like blend it together, and it looks amazing. And I forget
Are you referring
the
to
actual
Kubo?
name. Possibly. That might have
been it was the newer film that's kind of Asian descent, or at least it's trying to get an Asian feel to it.
Right.
Are you talking about that one?
Yeah, I think that might have been it. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I believe it's Kubo. Anyway, but still, so the reason why, yes, we're obviously shitting on the sexism aspect of it here because, sorry everyone, women don't talk like that. And I really don't know what era they ever did, maybe 1933. But still, the problem is that we don't know how women talked in 1933. Tristan and I weren't there, so all we see is movies. But most of the time, at least when it comes to the credits, so maybe we'll never know in some ways, but these movies are written by men. They're just like, so what's the woman going to say in this situation? Everyone in this room who's men, who are men? Well, I think she'd say, oh, and then swoon. Yep, that is what she'd say. So it's a kind of a problem. And even then, even though I said they brought a woman on, I don't know what her role was with the dialogue. I might have just been like, no, don't worry about the dialogue. Worry about the action and, see what needs to be cut. Don't worry about that. So we don't know if she wanted, we don't know anything about her personally with her role in the dialogue. At least I don't remember if there was specific she made specific changes to dialogue. I just know that the one thing that I do remember is she basically cut out anything that involved them transporting Kong to New York because it would be too time consuming. So she just thought it would be a lot better budget wise and just kind of like will they get him there? Just a quick cut to New York. She thought that would be better. And despite the fact that I made the joke about there being no budget and everything, I do think it was a better cut because, what are they going to do? Show them in chains on the boat? There's not going to be much drama there. And there was already a lot of talking going to the island. So I think if we added another 20 minutes of talking coming from the island, it would really slow the movie down further.
Yeah, it wouldn't have done anything to enhance the experience.
Yes. Unless you're bringing up you're on the boat and all of a sudden it's like, wait a minute, is that Mothra flying in the air? But they're not gonna fucking do that.
Godzilla comes out and topples the boat.
Yeah. We must release Kong to fight Mothra on the boat. He fights Mothra. Good. Now get back in the chains. You fucking serious, bro?
Yeah. Apes can't really swim that well either. That wouldn't.
No. He'd be on the boat. That's the problem.
No, I know. Just thinking, it's well, what if Mothra knocks him off the boat? Well, then I guess we're screwed, Jimmy.
That's even worse. That's what. Yeah. My God. So anyway, by the way, so I want to touch on a smaller, potentially hidden racial aspect that people might not actually think about. Some may, but I feel like people might not really think about it, because he wasn't really portrayed through a lot of the film. Charlie?
The cook?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So here's the problem.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that back then they called Asian people Charlies. Don't quote me on that.
Right.
Please don't. But I'm pretty sure that was one of the names, one of those Charlies. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Right? Or maybe I'm thinking of a different era. And it's funny. People from the 70s, no, that was Vietnam shit. What the fuck are you doing, man? And I'm like, I wasn't born. The point is that regardless of what his name is, holy fucking shit, Dr. Jones, he was... Sorry, it was not good.
Yeah. No.
The only thing that would have made his character worse if they were just you know what, bring him on. He might know some of that martial arts foolery. The only thing that would have made it worse would have been him going one-on-one kung fu style with Kong.
I feel like they almost did because at the point where the Islanders have kidnapped, was it Anne? I believe it was Anne. When they kidnap her off the boat, and he's trying to jump into one of the, the ashore boats to go with the rest of the guys with guns, and he has, a kitchen knife, and he's like, oh, I want to help too. And the one guy's like, this is no place for a cook, get out of the way, that kind of thing. Like,
well, hey, listen, I got to be real. They brought him on with the knife. I'm cool with that. I would like to see him chop some people up. The problem is the people that he's chopping up. But
I would
like to see him. No, listen, okay? Listen, all right? They're trying to take it away from any of the racial elements, which is really hard to do. They're trying to steal people, and they're fighting them. So you know what? Yes, they're like foreign invaders, but for once, all the white people wanted to do was just look at the ape and leave. For once, this wasn't about taking over land.
Yeah.
For once, this was like, listen, guys, we actually want to keep you guys real chill. We just trying to find out what Kong is.
We'd actually love to film your ceremony and learn more about the giant ape behind the door there.
The one time, I just got to be very real with you. The one time, a long time ago, right? It's a weird way to put it, because like I would hope it wouldn't happen. Like I assume it wouldn't happen today. But like thinking about like tribes and areas that are in a way undiscovered, but again, sounds hilarious when you say that, because you're like, what do you mean fucking undiscovered? There's people there, but not the white people. So like, not discovered by white people, right? An area like that where white men came in and were like, oh no, we want your culture.
Quote unquote civilized world.
Well, that's why I just said white people. Although then again, you're right. It doesn't have, like, it can be, they could be white and also quote unquote uncivilized. But still, my point is that them coming in and going, oh no, we actually respect your culture completely and we do not want to hurt you in any way. We're just and that's what's funny, because again, who's writing this movie? White men. So like, why are they going to come in and just be like, hey, listen, all of you damn dirty people? Like, no, they're just like, well, we just came in just to see what all the fuss was about. But then they stole our white women. But then they stole our white women. And we were just, gosh darn it, we were so confused. And it's just like, oh, God. By the way, when they were like, oh, we'll give you 5 of our women for 1 of yours, I sat there and I was like, Jesus Christ. Like, black votes being 1/3 of a vote looks better in comparison. Just 5 of us are 1 of you. So, I mean, take it or leave it. Just kidding. We're going to take her if you leave it.
Yeah.
It was like, Jesus H. Christ. Like, it was just, and again, if anyone's wondering, but what's the problem? The problem is that despite, even though I don't think anyone in this movie actually looked at anthropological findings at the time, still though, at the time,
it's,
it was looked at as in, oh, if they're not us, then they are savage. They are uncivilized. Now, of course, that is a horrible way of looking at it, because everyone has to understand that life is life, duh. So, like, you don't sit there, like, yes, look, it's just like we don't, like, they are living, right? Like, and also, another thing, too, is they don't have to live that way, because I'm pretty sure people came in to many different places, and we're like, even though like they changed their way of life. So even in 1933, that's still a terrible depiction. Yeah, putting racism aside, it's still a terrible depiction of people living on an island. Unless maybe I'm wrong there. Even for 1933, blah, 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 that's still a horrible depiction.
Yeah,
of all of them there.
To put it from my perspective, just in the sense that, like you were alluding to, anthropological ideals, or ideas in the, 30s and 40s. A lot of it was done, like, we use the term armchair scholars, because it's like, people reading up about what has been found, or just, very small contacts that I guess, some others have had with different cultures. So a lot of people never actually went out for themselves or tried to understand what their culture even was, or that they even had one that wasn't, Catholicism, or just, that's not a culture, but a religion, or just elements that make up their lives. Like, a lot of this is probably what people thought was legit in the 30s, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it pains me to say it, but, like, yeah, we really hadn't come that far along quite yet.
Okay, so then you're saying both are wrong, because what I'm saying was I don't even think that they consulted scholars at the time. But what you're saying is, regardless if they did or not, it still would have been a negative depiction regardless.
Probably would have painted a similar picture. Yeah, not going to lie.
Okay, fair enough.
Granted,
thank you for that insight.
As we found, or as time has passed, obviously we've changed that depiction. And, you know.
And yeah, and we want to put out there, we're not trying to sit there and be like, what, they can't have drums? Like, are you serious? Right? Like, no, like, or what? It's more so the idea of, like, virgin sacrifice, I think, really.
Yeah.
Because
even with that, there's not a lot of, like, cultures around the world just don't do that kind of thing. I'm not going to say, like, sacrifice in other means doesn't exist, but, like,
usually animals.
Yeah, exactly. It's usually not people.
Okay. So then, yeah, and that's very interesting because, I really don't want to sound racist here, but I have to be honest with you. If you watch, I've watched a lot of movies, sadly, where they've depicted this, so I would just assume, no, but there had to be a point in human history where there was a lot of human sacrifices. And you're like, from what we've seen, no, at least not in the 1900s when these movies are coming out and they're saying, this is happening right now. No, not in the 1930s, not in the 1940s or 50s or 60s.
Yeah, not really any time. Like, there are exceptions here and there, but, like,
of course.
Yeah, human sacrifice has never been as big as, obviously, as, Hollywood has amped it up to be. It's like, it's for a shock factor, It's like, oh, they're sacrificing people. Like, how could they do that? It's like, well, yeah, because they're, those godless heathens. They even say it when they walk up onto the beach. Like, I wonder what, heathen tricks they're up to now. It's like, yes, because they don't follow Christianity, right? Yeah, that's where that's coming from. All right.
Well, it's just really funny. Just, we'll see things that have never been seen by a white man. And it's just like, cool. Like,
that's true.
Okay.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah. It's just one of those situations where, again, and also, really want to put it out there, we're not trying to sit here and say that no tribes have never worn something like that, unless you want to, because you know more than I do.
I mean, like,
it's just
because it's weird for me because it feels like they're just going for nondescript islander, so they're not really, like, picking a specific group of people or a specific culture to represent. So,
but the problem,
they're kind of in a weird gray area. It's more. It's just not more of like how they dressed. It's just more of how they acted
and how they look. And that's something that I really need to put out there, because now I have to, sadly, to some people sad, I have to bring the racial implications, the racial things, because if they were all white islanders, there wouldn't be a problem there, in my opinion, because yes, it would be a problem obviously from all the other aspects, right? Like, they're still considered savages and everything like that, but it wouldn't be this thing where it's just like, all right, all of us coming in as white people, and then, man, these just black people who just speak or these darker people who just speak in random, bloop bloop bloops and, random made up language with all their spears and their, and their shields. And, like, yeah, that is a problem. Because if they were all lighter skinned, then it would just be like, oh, come on, we could try and reason with them. Now, of course, they did talk to them. It's not like they just started shooting everyone. But still, there's this idea of, like, all right, we'll try to reason with them because, maybe they're reasonable. If they were whiter, it'd be like, oh, wait, has this place already been inhabited? I feel like it would be a different film if they were, or there would be a different portrayal of like, maybe it would be, well, how could these white people do something like this? But really, in this movie, especially with all the hysteria at the time over, tribes and things like that, and how, human sacrifice and all those other movies, to me, even though you're like, oh, they go for the shock value, but sadly at that time, a human sacrifice isn't that shocking, at least in my opinion. It just seems like, oh, yeah, of course they'd do that. We wouldn't. We just kidnap women off the street and ask them to be in movies. What?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I just want to put that out there. It's like once you bring and again, if some people are like, I still don't get it, right? I still don't get why it's a problem. It's a problem because, again, if, them looking as if they are quote unquote African and then doing all of that, it sticks with you. Especially if you keep on seeing it over and over and over in more movies, where, like, why can't random guy on a boat just be some random black dude who's just like, I am a random black dude on a boat? No, the first time you see African-American people in this film is as what some would deem at the time, well, many would deem at the time, savages, who then steal the white woman. Like, sorry, everyone, that's what Birth of a Nation does. You know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
And if you're not familiar with that film, Tristan, I'll talk to you about it afterwards, Birth of a Nation. That's what it does, it starts to influence films or, media in a way for a very long time. And you're just like, and once you really start to think about it, you're like, that's right. Like, why aren't, because think about it, right, Tristan? Like, you told me, like, oh, you were trying to say to me, or I think you were at least, and please correct me if I'm wrong, you were kind of like saying, like, no, just the tribes in general, because they don't have to be darker skinned, but in the movies they are. Like, in other words, if you had them going to an island, right, they don't have to be darker skinned, right? It could just be a tribes of folk that are light skinned, right? They don't have to be. Unless you want to, tell me, like, no, usually based on this data where they'd be, there's a higher percentage or a higher chance. But, like, they don't have to be. But when you see the movies, with the way that they're shown.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, they end up being this way. And then that further, in my opinion, it kind of just adds to this problem. So that's my take on it anyway. But yeah,
I don't know. It's kind of weird for me because, like I said before, it's more of the way they were acting and being hostile, and then kidnapping her like afterwards. That is the problem for me, because they're not. It doesn't feel like they're attacking a specific group of people. So I don't know, like,
but as a skin color, yes.
I don't know where. Like, yes, I would agree. There should be, a mix of different people on the ship as well, and not just have, the only representation of a certain, color or peoples, in that regard. That's, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, no, it's because it's interesting because of course, because if they were just people on the island, like, hi, then you'd be like, oh, and then they're like, so hi, I'm African American, I'm going to steal your woman. Then you'd be like, what the fuck? This is racist, right? So, like,
right.
But now for you, your first thing that comes off because of what you've studied, your first thing that comes to your mind is, yes, I have to remind you, like, oh, and they're also African American. You're like, right, because to me, they're just, people on this island who, happen to be in a tribe who are misrepresented so much.
Right. And it's like, I obviously know that the actors themselves are African American, but
thank God, by the way. I would like to put that out there. Because they were literally, I'm sitting there and I'm like, man, you were one makeup decision away from being blackface. You were this is 1933. You were so fucking close. It's not even funny. Yeah, I do wonder if they were like, no, we need too many of them. What do you mean by them? You know what I mean by them, right? 1930s. Good God. But seriously, we need a lot of people to be these islanders. We can't just put blackface on everyone. And it's kind of like, all right. It's just, but like, my God. But anyway, I still would have preferred. It's interesting. I would have preferred the cook come along with them with the butcher knife. My problem is, and I was half joking, half being serious, if he's just like, I also know the ancient ways of kung fu, and it's like, motherfucker.
I feel like they probably would have pulled that out if he had come onto the island with them. Not gonna lie.
Yeah.
And not
or
to
it's
even
like, I have
mention
an ancient Chinese
broken
secret.
English.
Oh God, yes. Oh God,
Yeah.
The broken English. That's why I made a joke to you. That's why I even said, I was like, holy fucking shit, Dr. Jones, because he's literally like, maybe he's Short Round's dad. That's all I'm saying. I'm putting that out there. The timelines match up. Maybe he's his dad.
Oh boy.
Yeah. And oh God, it's frustrating. Anyway, but again, right, I said this earlier and I still stick by it. There are many great things about this movie. Like just how, the one line of dialogue, and I don't say it's only one. I don't be the guy that's like, there's only one good line of dialogue. But I think the best line of dialogue, one that I loved the most, that I really found, like, it really stuck out to me, and it's a line I think that will stick with you. Like, it's one of those lines where, like, we need a bigger boat or something like that in Jaws, like in another, like, there's certain lines in movies that you're like, holy shit, that one is going to stick with you for a very long time. And the one that sticks here from King Kong, to me anyway, is when they were taking the test shots. And it's like, all right, look off in the distance and pretend that you see this, and then, but make your eyes wider, and then do this, and then do that. And then, two of the guys on the ship, one of them who's the love interest, they're both talking, and the love interest, he says, he basically says straight out, like, if he's making her look like that, what does he think she's going to see? And I'm like, oh, damn. Because even though we know what's coming with Kong, even if you don't know what's coming, you're like, what does, which it's funny, even though this was 1933, and everyone's like, well, they wouldn't have known what was coming, movie posters existed. Of course they know how Kong looked, or at least his face. Right. So, but still though, you not knowing what's coming up, like if you've seen this movie for the first time, and even if you do, really, it's just a line that no matter what level of knowledge you have of King Kong, you're like, holy shit, what does he think she's going to see? And it's amazing. Like, it really kind of riles you up, like, in the same way that when people were talking about Gogeta or Godzilla in the first Gogeta movie, and then they're just like, oh my God, like, what's going to happen? And then you see that head come out from the bend, like from the mountain, and your heart stops. You're like, oh man, right? So I was a fan. Like, I was a fan of that line. And also, by the way, I want to mention something that I would argue, because I've talked a lot about sexism in this podcast, and because, yes, right? Just Tristan's like, yeah, you have, Matt, because yes. But one thing that I would argue is actually very interesting. I mentioned it was so funny before, and you were laughing too, the idea of like, oh, we need romance in this picture. But when they were talking about, like, we need a pretty face, I don't think that's the problem, because that's kind of how everyone does feel. Like, sorry to say it, but, like, one thing that's existed in, like, if anyone says, no one cares about a pretty face, be it about men or women. All they care about are acting abilities. I don't know if you understand how this business works. Like, they should care about acting ability alone. But I can guarantee you there's a reason why, the business is the way it is with A-list celebrities, looking the way they do, putting them in these photo shoots, photoshopping them. Not that they should, but the reason why they do. And thankfully, we're trying to move away from that as a society. But still, sadly, there's all these studies done that, like, oh, a pretty face tells you something, you're more inclined to agree or believe them. And it's like, really? Yeah, sadly, those are the studies that have been done, and they still hold true today. So the idea that, like, oh, you know, all we need is a pretty face. It's like anyone trying to say, oh, that's sexist and that's a terrible start to the movie. I really, you know, I am a man, I get it, but I still want to argue, I don't know about that necessarily. It's when we start, and I'm sorry, I keep on using the word, but it's not hyperbole, kidnapping women off the street. The motherfucker, even though this was a smart idea, the motherfucker was like, let me go to a women's shelter. They can't say no.
Yeah.
No, in a sick and twisted way, it's a smart idea because it's just like, hey, if I offer these women any kind of money, they'll come to me. But it's still fucked up regardless.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. Like, and he looked at all of them, and and by the way, here's the thing too. You might be like, but why didn't he pick any of them? Like a person listening in. But why didn't he pick any of them? For what reason did he not pick one? Because they didn't look good.
Yeah.
Because he looked at all of them, and he's just like, nah. And then walked away.
Pretty much.
By the way, just wanna put this out there. Fuck that guy that thought she was stealing. Like, she literally just grabbed one. Like, I guess you're not supposed to do that back then? Or he's just a dick? I'm not sure.
I mean, no, I would argue, like, at a cart stand, kind of like that kind of thing. Like, you pick something up and you're not getting the attention of the dealer to, like, hey, I'm buying this. It can be kind of taken like, oh, well, you're stealing. But
fair enough. Because you know what it is for me? For me, like, you know, I'll because we do Let's Plays, and sadly a lot of you guys aren't, you know, in the part of New York that I'm in, you guys being, you know, Tristan Walter and Anthony Toto, another person we do Let's Plays with, you guys will come in from Long Island, and I'll pick you up at Penn Station, right? When I do that, yeah, sometimes I want to get some candy from one of the stands. But, like, you're not going to sit there and, like, look at the candy and be like, let me feel it. Let me see how it feels. But, like, it's a fruit stand. So, like, maybe I guess you're supposed to say how much for the oranges or how much for the pears or whatever. But for me, it's just like, yeah, I'm going to feel it out. And if I don't like how it feels, go fuck yourself. I don't care about the price if it doesn't feel like something I'm going to take. Now, granted, yes, I guess you should, like, look for the price first. But, like, I don't know. Like, for me, it's a bit different than, like I'm not going to pick up candy in a bag and be like, let me see how they feel. Even though I probably should start doing that because I get a lot of hard candy that isn't supposed to be hard. It's supposed to be chewy, goddammit. That was a weird rant. Anyway, Matt, what are you doing on King Kong? I don't know anymore. So I want to hear your interpretation on the stop motion because I know you said you liked it, but I want to hear what you think about it even more. So.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because this series is, or at least, well, not the series, but the movie itself, King Kong. I feel, trying to think of his name, Ray Harryhausen, I believe, like, saw this movie, and because I was trying to look into this before, to see who worked on the stop motion, because I'm pretty sure this was one of his inspirations, you know, to go into this kind of filmmaking, and he was more bigger, like, in the 40s and onwards, where he did a lot of other, like, you know, monster movies kind of like this, but the stop motion that he used was really, like, it was really top notch at the time, and he only got better with it. So, like, seeing it here in Kong was was really nice for me because I kind of grew up with those movies, or maybe not grew up, but, like, I was always fascinated by them as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yes.
Seeing it here and seeing how, you know, they put a lot, they actually put emphasis in Kong emoting, which I thought was interesting for the times. Like, it's the 30s.
Yes.
Like, really didn't think they'd go. Yeah.
I wasn't a big fan of the emoting, but having him walk around, and in a strange thing, as the movie went along, I think his the stop motion that they used for him got better. I don't know if they filmed it in like the stop. I know they filmed the stop motion first, but I don't know if they filmed it in order of when they appeared in the movie. But if they did, it would make sense because his first appearance, in my opinion, wasn't as good stop motion wise as his later appearances in the film.
Right.
Like I think it kept on getting better and better, quality wise.
Okay.
Yeah. Also, I think maybe a problem, which is hard for them to do, is it's hard for them to use him on 2 feet versus the dinosaurs. Because the Stegosaurus was done very, very well, in my opinion, because of him being on 4 feet and having limited movement compared to Kong, who is, humanoid. So the stop motion is a little bit harder to work with. Still great, though, but please keep gushing over it. We need some good feelings in this podcast.
Well, because most of it is usually, at least from what I've heard, is a lot like they'll make a clay figure and they'll put it onto like a wire frame.
Well, in this
like a stick figure with wire,
and then.
Well, they did probably a mix of that, and then also, the really close-up shots were obviously, a guy in a mask or like the puppet hand holding her in those scenes. Like,
actually, here's something really funny. Apparently, even though I thought, just like you did, that the close-up shot was a guy in a suit, apparently, according to everyone who worked on the film, despite all of our rumblings, historians say that, no, every shot was done with animatronics or with, some kind of, stop-motion effect. So even the close-up shots were not dude in suit. I don't know if I believe it. But that's what we've been told.
Okay.
By the way, so here, the way the models were built, 2-jointed, 18-inch aluminum, foam rubber, latex, and originally they used rabbit fur, but apparently it would stick to things and it would kind of show their their print. So they changed it to, I believe it was, what kind of fur was it? I don't remember what kind of fur they changed it to. I believe it was like tiger or something like that. But originally it was meant, they had it as, originally they had it as rabbit fur.
Right.
So obviously rabbit fur wasn't filmed in the final cut.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, yes, the hand obviously was a separate hand. Duh.
Yeah.
And what they would do is they would have they would have the hand grab the actress, Fay Ray, I believe, and they would have it grab her, and then she would pretend to because basically it would grab her just enough to hold her, because it was basically the arm was attached to, I believe, not a cherry picker, but something along the lines of a cherry picker that would kind of just bring her up. A crane, thank you. A crane that would bring her up, and then they would have a fan under her to kind of blow air as if she was being moved.
Right.
Yeah. And then she would just kind of move around and pretend to be like, Kong, oh no.
Yeah,
and then they would
out of the grip.
Yes, exactly. And it was very interesting the way it was done. Also something else, all of the jungle sets, not the jungle sets as in where they were walking, but the idea that you would look into the distance and it would look like there would be a large jungle behind them.
Right.
That was painted on glass.
Right.
Because apparently glass gave off the depth effect.
Right. Yeah,
which
I remember
is
that.
fucking mind-blowing.
Yeah.
1933.
Well, that's the thing. You kind of had to be creative in a sense of how you wanted to portray things and how you went about doing it, because you didn't have the technology or, the ability like CGI like we have nowadays. So, the stuff that they would have come up with is really interesting nowadays because, you can't just run to a computer program. It's you kind of have to think of really, really strange ways of getting the effects that you want. And it's really cool somehow. Yeah, that's why in many ways I feel very confident with you and with everyone, really, in calling this a classic. But then in some other ways, the ones I've already mentioned, it is hard for me to stand by that. Do you know? Right. No.
It's very hard. It's very, very hard. Because again, even when you take away all the other aspects I've mentioned that I dislike, that some people might say that it's a little bit too social justice. Even then, I feel like the script is flimsy. But with the effects that were used, très magnifique.
Yeah.
I mean, I just really thinking about what they had to do to make this film fucking possible.
I would say more
man.
of the ways the film was made, not how it was written.
Exactly. I'd give you that 100%. Yes.
Yeah.
God, it was so interesting.
I even love the scenes with the dinosaurs. Like, you'd said, like, the Stegosaurus was done very well. There was a sauropod in this. I'll just go with it was probably a brontosaur at the time. But,
okay.
I mean, because there's the whole joke about brontosaurs because it's the wrong skull and the wrong body, and it was actually an Apatosaurus. But now there's a new species, I think, that they're calling now Brontosaurus, so it's a long story. But the main point for this film is that it was eating people and attacking them, and that it lived in the water.
And it shouldn't.
No, it's a herbivore. Same thing with the Stegosaur. Like, the
Stegosaur wasn't going to eat them.
Well, no, but it charged them. And unless unless it was defending young, I would argue, like, okay, obviously you're arguing about prehistoric animals here, like, you wouldn't really know 100%, but just as far as studies in paleontology have come, I would argue it wouldn't have charged them like that. It probably would have just walked the fuck away. Like, that's what made me so sad about it. It's like, you really had to nade it, didn't you? Didn't you? It's,
I think
the white man taming the wilderness. That's what we're going for here. You're not getting around that one.
Yeah, that one really made me sad the most, I think, because the way they animated it, even with the charging, I don't know, there was something that they did with it that to me, or maybe it's because I know what kind it is, so, I've seen it in media be very calm and chill. So, it felt like it was never going to actually kill them, even though obviously it was charging at them, but it still felt like they... Also, I think because of the excess shooting, like if they had killed it the first time around, fine.
Yeah.
Then it was just like, all right, he's down. Wait, no, he's getting back up.
No, shoot him again.
Oh, no, he's still moving. Shoot him in the head. There we go. Got him. And it's like, oh.
He's dead.
It hurt. It hurt.
Yeah, oh, no, it was terrible. The effect that they used for them walking alongside it and not actually, like, physically being there to touch it was, a cool way to film it, but... Yeah, the sense it's like, no, we're going to shoot it dead. Really, guys? Like, I love how he gets so worked up about, we could bring Kong back, to the civilized world and we'll make millions. So you couldn't have done that with the fucking dinosaur either?
Well,
whatever.
Maybe not live, but at least they should have brought it back dead. I think maybe it was just too large for them, and but I have to admit, though,
Too large?
Really? But
compared
hear
to
me
Kong,
out, though.
The Stegosaurus too large?
Kong fell by their feet. Now, they didn't think it would, but Kong fell by their feet versus dragging the Stegosaur back, and the villagers were chasing them.
Yeah. But it's
just
the idea that he was like, no, Kong
though.
is the thing that will make me the money. It's like because people wouldn't freak out from seeing a live dinosaur either. Like, even in the 1930s, I'm pretty sure that would have been a damn good selling point. Just not going to lie.
Yeah, no, I definitely have to give you that. I do think that, and that's another reason why we kind of sit there and we're like, wait, are you fucking serious, though? Like, who wrote this and thought, no one really gives a fuck about the dinosaur? Like, I'm sorry? Like, that's why, when I had mentioned, before the show began, right, we were talking about the movie briefly, and you were like, well, look at the time period. And I was like, we could say the time period to be like, yeah, that's why, they showed the villagers and the tribe that way, and why they, had the woman react that way, and then that's why they, didn't have her really stand up for herself mostly, and all this other stuff, right, that we can say, like, of course the animatronic's going to look that way, and a lot of things we can say, well, 1930s limitations. But when it comes to the fact that you're sitting there with fucking dinosaurs, and they're just like, no, not worth it. Let's get the giant ape. Really?
Okay.
Again, even though I had said, at the time, everyone, movies were centered around apes more so than they were, I don't know, just apes in general. Dinosaurs were around too in movies. Both were popular.
Right.
By the way, I forgot to mention.
That's why you have Kong fighting against the Tyrannosaur, or actually not a Tyrannosaur. That was probably an Allosaur. But then again, they, species-wise, they probably really didn't care which one it was. It's like, it's the meat eater. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Two things I want to really mention. I forgot about the guys falling to their death with Kong trying to pick up the tree trunk.
Yeah, the log. Yeah.
Holy shit, that was horrifying.
Yeah. I mean,
because
it's
you know
funny.
what's horrifying? What?
Oh no, like the sense that they used actual dummies for the bodies and just put in over the people screaming as they fell to their death. Yeah, that was okay.
Well, you know why it was horrifying? I don't know how they did the dummies, but for many of them, if not all of them, at least from what I'm seeing again, it does not seem like the dummies fell the way you would laugh at dummies falling, if you know what I mean. The dummies didn't fall to me like, oh no, their hands are waving around. No, they just fell and then you heard the thud.
Yeah.
They put something in them so that they would fall like people would, into the arms. So I think that's the thing you notice a lot with dummies and ragdoll physics that get hilarious. Is that they they end up their arms get wavy and then, or you see the faces or something like that. But no, it was just back of the head.
Might have possibly used pig carcasses. Because that is...
And dress them up or something, or...
Yeah, because they'll the musculature and the bone structure is similar enough. It'll
That's a scary thought,
make
but
kind of the same. Yeah, it's. I've heard about it in other special effects like sound effects. If you drop a slab of pig carcass, it'll kind of sound like a person's body hitting the pavement, and it's an interesting idea.
You meant the sound, not the... Well, you meant the sound, not the way they... Wait, because you said dress them up. They recorded the sound separately.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so, right.
That's why I was confused. I was you meant they dropped them to record the sound later, or they dressed them up as people? That's why I was confused.
Right.
I was they dressed up pigs as people, Tristan?
Animal farm?
For the filming? That's why I was confused.
Right.
But anyway, I was, I really liked, funny thing about the Brontosaur, literally he's in the water and I'm it's Nessie.
Yeah.
That's all this is. It's just Nessie.
Yeah.
Does Nessie exist, Tristan? I'm sure your books didn't tell you about that.
Oh, God. Well, it's the idea that something so massive couldn't have, lumbered on land for too long. So, old depictions of sauropods, they're always in kind of a marshy kind of setting, and they're kind of submerged in water. That's not...
And people know better now, or...?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Not to say that they couldn't go into that kind of environment, but they didn't spend, most of their time in it.
Got it.
Coming out of the water like they depicted in the movie. It's there are other marine reptiles that you would be in the water like that, not in a marsh setting, more in an ocean setting. But Brontosaur wouldn't come out and start eating everyone. It was interesting how they used the stop motion, and they even did the people even some scenes with Kong where the people were still figures that they would stop and move to get the right kind of movement. I felt they really put in a lot to get those movements of the people right. They even did a few scenes like that with Anne, where it was it would switch between her actress and just a figure, for the stop motion.
Oh, the only time I think that I saw people falling and I was this is horse shit. This looks terrible. Sorry. Just in general. Not to you, just in general. Sorry, everyone.
Yeah.
Was when she and the other guy fell after Kong. They basically, they let go and then they fell to the water. I was why? Why is the rest of the movie...
by the Pteranodon. Which is
why?
It made me laugh because it's Jesus Christ, everything in this jungle is just trying to, attack you and eat the girl that you are so mystified by. It's literally everything. It's she has a sign on her back that says, eat at Joe's,
By the way, you know what's very interesting, I think, and something I was like, why did he do that? When Kong broke the dinosaur's jaw, now I just realized it. He looks at the jaw the same way he looks at the clothes later, and it's just like, I'm confused. Have you never fought anything in this jungle, Kong?
Yeah.
Have you all been fine until the white woman came? Does that not say less about?
Oh, jeez. Right.
Like, I'm so confused, Kong. Why? Because it's assumed that they all weren't just buddy-buddy with each other until people came.
Right.
It's very interesting.
I did like the actual fight that they had between, the Tyrannosaur. Oh, well, I'll just call it the Tyrannosaur just for the sake of the, movie.
Mm-hmm.
The fight between Kong
fight?
and the Tyrannosaur. That was
By the way, that fight took it actually took 8 months to film.
Yeah, like for each motion to be captured and the film that it must have taken, but it was worth it. Like that looked great. For it kind of makes me look at some of the Godzilla films where it's like, obviously different methods of filming. Like it's people in suits, but like when we just looking at some of those fights, it's like it's not as well choreographed, I guess you could say, as
that's
as it is
because
here.
That was early.
I know, yes. And again, it's two different methods of filming too. It's two completely different ways of going about it. So yeah, there's going to be differences.
Yeah.
But
also,
I was just
let's
looking
be real.
at this and saying, this is so cool.
But let's also be real. This movie got a very large budget for its time, versus I would argue Gojira not having that same budget. Yes, being 23 years later, but not having that same budget, and also trying to speed up the monster fight footage as well, because they were like, oh, this is too slow. Then I think after a while they may have realized when filming monster footage, we don't need to speed it up. We're good.
Right.
Like, even if it's, like, in a way, they probably slow it down after a while.
Yeah.
Where, like, like when you see the blows come in, like,
right.
Like, in a way, I'm like, did you probably slow this down a little bit in how you cut it?
Yeah.
Or?
Right.
Anyway. But, yeah, very interesting, like, looking at the way this was done. But also, please remember, the movie got a very large budget. It was given the world when they, like, at first it wouldn't have been. Like, there was a chance that this movie wasn't even going to be made. But when when the director really convinced everyone, like, no, like, or found RKO, and they were like, yeah, we'll make the movie, they gave them a lot of money to make this. This was not a low-budget picture. If it was, we would not, like, if it was, we probably would have gotten a suit, or we would have gotten, like, a 5-foot, or not 5, like a 7-foot-tall Kong.
Right.
And that's it.
Oh, jeez. Yeah.
By the way, I'm actually surprised at how short Kong is. And I know you might be like, Matt, he was 40 feet tall. Like, that's not short. But, like, because of stop motion, I guess, the way that they panned the camera out, and also because later on we see him going up against, like, Godzilla in other movies.
Yeah.
It's funny to think, like, oh, only 40 feet? Really?
Yeah,
like,
I mean, I feel like that specification has changed throughout the years. Like, same deal with Godzilla.
Oh, yeah.
Like, Godzilla's fluctuated in height over the years for, like, many years now. So
I know. I'm pretty sure the joke is that the Godzilla from U.S., like the 1994 version or 96 or something like that, 97, that version of Godzilla,
I think,
I'm pretty sure it was
96,
97.
98, somewhere in there.
Yeah, that version of Godzilla is really short, and everyone was mad at how short he was.
Yeah.
Because he didn't tower over everything in New York.
Right.
Yes, New York's big, but, like, still, I remember the jokes were like, he was really small.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so
I
the
mean,
way this movie was filmed,
Yeah, they even, to have Kong on the Empire State Building at the time, like,
Yeah.
it's still, like, Kong is still small in comparison to the Empire State Building. Like, he's able to climb up it.
Yes, which I'm not saying that he shouldn't be able to climb up it, but, like, it was a lot of climbing, which, again, I guess the scale is like, oh, it's, like, in movies it looks cool for him to be climbing up, all that way, but then it's just like it makes him look small in comparison.
Right.
Right. Anyway, So I wanted to mention that the person that worked on special effects was Willis O'Brien.
Yes. There we go.
Mm-hmm.
I
And
knew
he
I
didn't
knew
just
the
work
name.
on this. This
Yes.
wasn't his first
Right.
movie, which is also very interesting, too, when you look at some of his other stuff that he's done that I'm not going to list now because we don't have the time. But it was just very interesting. Anywho, so I want to mention something to you. I want to mention the fact that let me see, just looking at this film. Oh, so the reason why they're on the island so much, because I don't know about you, it felt like not a cop-out. I feel like I've been using that word a lot and not using it properly. But it feels like it was, in a way, like it was just too heavily focused on the island and there wasn't enough focus elsewhere. Like, the movie wasn't about King Kong rampaging through New York like the advertising promised at the time. The movie was about King Kong existing, which is still a cool concept, but, like, when you hear about him being in New York, it feels like he really wasn't in New York for long. A little bit like in Jurassic Park 2, when it was like, oh, they're coming to the big city, and then they just kind of did for, like, maybe like 10 minutes. You know? Same thing with Jason Takes Manhattan, where literally the name was called Jason Takes Manhattan, and he's literally in Manhattan for maybe like 20 minutes.
Right.
So I feel like when New York is promised
trying to get us into Manhattan.
Well, no, but that's the funny thing. They reuse sets from no, you're not. They reuse sets from other movies at the time, like The Most Dangerous Game, that were filmed in jungles. They reuse those sets for the movie. So of course they're going to use those sets for pretty much the entire film. So that's what's really funny. You're not wrong. You thought you were kidding, but you weren't.
Yeah. I mean, I would argue story-wise, like, focusing on being on the island more is kind of a better way to go about it, because I feel like there's only so much you can do with them rampaging in the city, kind of.
True.
At least
true.
in my
Good
opinion.
point. No, you're not wrong. You're not wrong there. I'll give you that. But I do think that with what they were trying to push with, like, Beauty and the Beast, they didn't really develop it much by having them be on the island and then just a simple scene in New York. That's the thing.
Yeah.
One more scene in New York may have padded some things out a little bit more for me.
Right.
But the fact that when they cut straight to the island of New York, right? Straight to New York, then from the island to New York, and then all of a sudden it's just like, well, here's Kong. Oh shit, he's broken out. Well, actually, oh shit, he's looking for. Oh, and he's found it. Oh, and he's going up the Empire. Can something shoot him? Okay, good. They're here to shoot him. Oh, not working? Well, fuck.
Yeah.
Like, again, like, to be fair, again, the effects were done very well, of course. Right. The only thing I noticed that was a problem was when Kong moved his head. By the end there, you can see some problems with his neck. Like, figure-wise, I don't know. Like, it was like white spots that were a little weird.
Oh, okay. Right.
Yeah. Other than that, though, I mean, the end was filmed well. I don't hate what they did with that. Because again, it just ties into everything they were saying about it was beauty, and all that shit.
Yeah.
So like it.
Oh, the planes really did get him, huh? No, it was beauty that killed the beast. Fade out.
And you sat there, and in 1933, they were like, you know what would make this better? If years from now, a guy from a really cool band said that line. I love Jack Black. I don't know if I loved him from what I remember, I don't know if I loved him in the King Kong remake, but I love Jack Black.
Yeah.
I love him. I really do. I just don't know.
I kind of love it.
It was beauty that killed the beast. Beauty.
So what do we take away from, like, what's the lesson that we take away from this, kids? Don't fall in love, or else the giant monkey will come and take you and yeah.
I thought the lesson was kids do not interact with black people, because all of a sudden this happened. I thought that was the lesson that they were trying to teach me. Was I wrong? Because I hope I was wrong.
I mean, oh boy.
Tristan is just like Tristan is that meme right now where there's two buttons to push. and he's just sweating.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean,
No,
I would
but in all
argue it's
serious-
the flip. I would argue it's the flip. It's like, and this is why we don't interact with white people.
Oh, okay, yes. Well, hey, I got to be real with you. Okay, you might be thinking, like, but here's the thing, though. Yes, a lot of the villagers were killed, so they're like, this is why we don't interact with white people. But they got Kong off the island, and a few dinosaurs died because of Kong. Like,
Right.
They don't like the immediate effects, but the aftermath is less Kong in their lives. I think they're kind of happy about that.
It's like they just go into the jungle. It's like they find the Stegosaurus. It's like, we'll eat for years, literally. Well, all right, you know what? I mean,
So literally one film critic, you see, white people made things better. Get out.
Oh,
Just get out.
damn it.
Get out, critic. Get out. Please leave. Get out. Get out, please. No, but God damn it. Fucking goddamn. No, but I don't think there was no lesson in this film, in my opinion, because really it's like Beauty killed the Beast. Really? Pretty sure the planes did, but whatever. Like, sorry, bro.
Well,
I mean, again, it was.
You could take it to another level and be like, man ruins everything he touches, because look at the shit we just pulled.
I love it. It was
the biggest thing for me at the end of the film was like, oh, you're the director, right? Oh yeah, he's the one who captured the monster. It's like, sorry, sir, you're gonna have to come with me down to the station. You've got a lot of people's deaths to answer for. It's like you brought this thing into Manhattan and it got loose. Technically, you should be held responsible for all this.
Is that a problem?
Well, no, like, it just cuts at the end of the film. Like, there's never any mention. It's like, so you arrested him, right?
Oh, yes, of course. Yes. Fair point. Fair point.
I want to say he was, but at the same time, it didn't, the officers didn't make any, I guess it was like, oh, well, we just kept the giant monkey from, destroying Manhattan. I guess that's the important thing that they're all thinking about at that point, but holy shit.
Yeah, I think it could have been good for one more line, like, you're going to take me in while that thing's out there, and it's like, okay, we'll be back for you, motherfucker.
Right,
like,
yeah.
We know your name, we know you, like, we're going to find you. Don't worry.
Your fingerprints are all over this.
Basically, like, well, yeah, at the very, like, maybe not. I don't know if they have the technology to, like, pick up the fingerprints, but, like, or at least very well. But the point is that they know, like, oh, you're the director. Now we know your face. Your name is up there in lights. Like, we're gonna find you. But yeah, we probably should do something against. Yes, but we should probably do something with this 40-foot tall. So yeah, because it's either one of two things. Either they were like, shit, we got to go, try to. Any kind of collateral damage based around Kong, we need to fix that now instead of just, like, running away, like running with you and bring you to the station. Or number two, he was like, but can I just do this one more scene? And they were like, of course, just whatever. You're a fucking actor. Like, you're fucking director, whatever. And then he just walks into the shot. Are the cameras rolling? Good. It was Beauty that killed that beast.
All right, take
I love
away.
it. No, I love it. Director that brings giant ape to Manhattan from Island literally for profit. That's the only thing he cares about is profit. And he's just like, Beauty killed the beast. Pretty sure it was capitalism, motherfucker, but okay. Pretty fucking sure it was capitalism. But, by the way, deregulated capitalism, because if he was stopped at the fucking dock, if there were any regulations there, Kong wouldn't have been in Manhattan.
Yeah, well, because even the boat captain was like, "You've got enough explosives in here to blow up the, harbor." I think, the deck officer is going to have some stuff to say about that.
And apparently he did. He said, "Move along." So I cannot fucking believe.
Well, it was the next morning that he was supposed to come in, and it's like, well, we're leaving before sunrise tomorrow, so fuck that.
I know, yeah. It's just really funny, though, because everyone's just like, what's the problem with deregulated capitalism? King Kong. That's the problem. If anyone's wondering, well, why haven't we had a King Kong situation in the last 30 years? Because capitalism has been regulated, people.
Jurassic
We've been putting
Park
more
2.
and more regulations.
Huh.
What?
Jurassic Park 2.
No, I'm just saying.
No,
I'm just saying. I'm going to end the show here by saying this. You start removing regulations and letting them pollute our waters. We don't need Warner Brothers to film Gojira versus King Kong. Don't worry.
Right.
It'll be coming to a live-action, real-life town near you. You hear Godzilla's roar in the background, but I'm not watching the movie.
Oh.
I'm sorry about my jokes, everyone. I'm not trying to point out at any presidencies. I'm just being a dick. Anyway, so I'm not trying to point out. I'm just being a dick. Anyway,
I would, but whatever.
Okay, that's fine. You can just off the air.
Yeah.
It was beauty that killed the beast.
I was going to argue, like you said, the whole capitalism thing. It's like maybe that's why they didn't show, the successful director being held off in, chains. It's like, no, I've just made my millions. I can't go to jail now. Actually, wait, what am I talking about? I can buy my way out of jail now. Well, shit.
That's literally what he did. He was like, how about you two? Oh, my God. Speaking of money, how funny was it? This ticket better be worth it. I paid $20 for it. And I was like,
right.
Granted, you being, a college graduate with student loan debt, to you, you're like, actually, yeah, if I do spend $20 on something, that does mean something. But with what the economy should be for everyone, right?
Yeah.
$20 is a meal. So imagine telling someone you're spending $20 or you're spending $13 on this hamburger. They just give you this look like, what kind of burger is this? But nowadays, it's like, yeah, $13 for a burger, whatever.
Yeah.
How funny is that?
Yeah.
My God, I just love it. $20 for this, and I'm like, yeah, you're looking at something on Broadway for $20? Fucking sign me up, pal.
Or even the woman that they were being like escorted to their seats, and she was like, "Oh, I can't sit up this close. It bother my eyes." It's like, "Oh, well, it's going to be a live performance." It's like, "No, but he does films and all of this." It's like, "Yes, I'm assured that it's a live performance this time." And I forget exactly how she words it, but she's like, "Oh, well, this is going to be shit." I'm like, all right, I hope you got trampled, when Kong got loose, because that probably happened.
Well, it's very interesting. Well, here's the thing, though. That's what made me very interested, because you would think it's the reverse, where she'd be like, oh, I don't like these moving pictures, but it's the live, aspect that I would enjoy more. Like, it's very interesting how, like, in a way, like, because the way... the reason why, you might be like, well, Matt, why would you say that? Because this isn't just being me, like, putting my sensibilities on this, like, oh, well, obviously they had to have, like, theater more. No, it's more so, like, anytime a newer technology comes up, the people who like the older technology look at the new one and say that it's terrible and that it's going to rot everyone's brains. So, like...
Well, I would argue for this time it's kind of the reverse in the sense, because, like, the new shit is, like, everyone's like, whoa, this is new.
No, but not completely. Like when movies came out, not that, like, obviously movies have been around for a bit since this came out, but still, like, this movie itself had come out. So obviously movies were a thing for a while. So maybe people just got used to it more. But when movies first came out, and I'm talking about, like, silent film reels, like when literally, like, an 8-second reel of a train moving, critics were like, I guess people aren't going to read books anymore, and they're going to be stupid.
Oh.
That was that's actually what happened. And then what happened when movies started becoming more commonplace and TV shows, or like the TVs were in everyone's houses? Oh, TVs in the home, boob tube, everyone's going to be stupid and no one's going to be, smart anymore. And you know what I'm saying? And then TVs start to become more commonplace. Internet starts having YouTube videos. Oh, my God. Videos on YouTube, they're only cats. You can't make a living off YouTube. And here we are today, not making a living off of YouTube, Tristan. Those guys play. Look it up.
Yeah.
But seriously, it's every time there's a new technology, the people from the past look at the new technology and they're like, that's stupid, or that's going to make people stupid, and that's terrible, forgetting that their technology was put under the same scrutiny.
Right.
So that's why I was very interested with her being like, ooh, a live performance is going to be terrible. I was like, really? Huh. All right. You suck, but all right. Anywho, so I think we're going to kind of end the show here, unless there's anything you want to really say about the film before we wrap it up.
No, I think I'm good.
All right, for once. No offense, but like usually you're like, actually, here's some really cool thing. And I'm like, yeah, let's do this. Anyway, so I want to thank you all for listening.
All right.
And as always, well, here are my notes, motherfucker. Anyway, I want to thank you all for listening in, as always, through our very interesting rant. Because it was such an interesting rant, right? Like, the special effects were amazing, but what wasn't special was the racism. So, like, that was a very interesting discussion we've had this episode. But again, I want to thank you all for listening in, as always. I think this is the first time you really hear us cutting into a movie like this deep in that regard, because it's 1933. So, like, what is shown in a movie, it's a lot different than what would be shown even in like the 80s, where you and I have like looked at some Indiana Jones films and we've been like, ooh, don't like that or that or that. But it's funny because in my opinion, they're trying to copy some of their style from movies like this, where it was really bad. And you're like, oh, ooh. Like looking at her character, I think Anne, in this movie, very reminiscent of the character, I can't remember her name, in Indiana Jones 2. Just this damsel in distress kind of character who's constantly just being taken. Anyway. So, again, thank you all. Going to wrap things up here. Going to mention that I mentioned earlier, we have a YouTube channel, Those Guys Play, which is, you search that up on YouTube, Those Guys Play, and you'll be able to find our Let's Plays. Currently, we're actually back with Those Guys Play Season 3. We're on a little bit of a hiatus, a month hiatus, and now we're back, and we're going to finish those episodes up every Saturday or Sunday, usually Saturday, though. So we also have that. We have Mappy's Games from His Childhood, which every week in the month of April we're doing back-to-back episodes on either Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday schedule. So this week, when this comes out, this past week we actually had two new episodes back-to-back of Yoshi's Island, and then next week we should be having two back-to-back episodes of either Crash Bandicoot 2 or A Link to the Past, because I'm currently playing those three games on Mappy's Games from His Childhood. I'm being Matt, beating games from my childhood. Also playing Fatal Frame as well, which comes out every once in a while. So definitely check that out on our YouTube channel, Those Guys Play. You're listening to our podcast right now. Don't know where you're listening to them. You could be listening to them through iTunes, actually, by searching up Those Guys on iTunes. You could be listening to us through Blog Talk Radio, which is our Blog Talk Radio account. You kind of just search up Those Guys on the radio. You could also be listening to us through our archived YouTube, our archive YouTube channel, which is Those Guys on the Radio. So you search up Those Guys on the Radio, you actually find our archived podcasts and listen to us there as well. So a lot of different ways you can be listening to us through our podcasts. And we also have our social media accounts. So if you're wondering, well, what show are we going to do next week? You're doing King Kong this week. What's coming up next week, Matt? Well, you can find out by going to our Facebook page, which is /Those Guys on the Radio, our Twitter page, which is @ThoseGuysRadio, and our Instagram page, which is /Those Guys on the Radio. Also, our main website, which is thoseguysontheradio.tumblr.com or tgproduction.net. And you can actually find out what shows that are going to be airing, both from our YouTube channels and from our podcasts. So it'll be a lot of fun, right? You can just keep on getting up-to-date TG news, although maybe not TG news, but TG Play news. And yeah, so a lot of cool stuff there. And also you can get some of our merchandise over at tgproduction.net/merchandise and over at our eBay, which is Those Guys Radio. And that's all. So, Tristan, you still with us? Have I bored you to death yet? Are you dead? Did merchandising kill the beast? Or?
Oh, I think it did now that you said it that way. Oh, all right.
Oh, my goodness.
Oh, God. Well, I'm going to fall out of my chair harder than Kong fell off the Empire State Building.
My God. Anyway, so I want to thank you all for listening and love that you guys are here. And I just want to remind you very briefly that Universal, because I believe it was Universal that owned King Kong by the 80s, they tried to sue Nintendo for Donkey Kong. And they lost because of the general depiction. Like, it was like, no, this is clearly nothing like Donkey Kong. Like King Kong. Yes, Kong is in the name, but no, Nintendo will not be giving you money for this, as if it's like trying to license it out, because damn it, they're not the same thing at all. However, funny story though, at least funny on my end, when you look at the theatrical release poster for King Kong, he's actually brown. So I don't even blame them anymore. Because now with Kong's depiction, he's, like, darker. So, black, even though it's black and white, still, you see Kong is darker, not lighter. But I'll send you the picture, Tristan, because it's light brown, which is very confusing to me.
Right.
Anyway, no, because it resembles Donkey Kong in a way. Anyway,
yeah, okay.
I'm going to leave you guys on that note. So, love you guys. Thank you for listening. Good night, and say good night, Tristan.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone. Stopping the podcast killed the beast.